All right, we're back. Play it forward. We have Fabrizio Federico today on the show. And Fabrizio, what's up?
How you doing? You alright?
I'm good, man. Where are you hailing from in England at the moment?
Oh, Nottingham.
Nottingham. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
Robin Hood area. Yeah, right in the middle of the UK.
Okay, right on. And so it's like, what, 5 hours ahead or something?
Yeah, what is it? It's 4:30 right now. 4:30.
Okay. Yep. So Fabrizio may be starting a new lineage on the show today. You've got a couple movies that we're going to use to dive more about you, your process, and the filmmaking artistic experience. So we're going to be talking about Virgin Rebel, which is a short that you shared, and that's really, I think, about the theme. And correct me if I'm wrong. You'll jump in, but the theme of youth versus adulthood, and
Yeah.
then we've got a feature documentary that you recently made, Anarchy in the UK, the New Underground Cinema. And that's really interesting in terms of exploring a movement of DIY cinema filmmakers that are coming out in this revolution, renaissance of tools. So the actual film tools becoming accessible to a small team or even a one-man band. So Fabrizio, how'd I do? Did I sum those two?
Oh yeah. It's a new generation. It's and we've gotten to the point where we've matured and we're making feature films now. Like it's great because I reckon in 10 years you're going to see these quality films in cinemas, if cinemas are even around in 10 years. I mean, it's a very dicey era to be a filmmaker, but it's really exciting because there's no rules whatsoever. And I, for example, don't really care about making money out of it. I give it away for free. My films are on YouTube for free. And the film festival that I'm running, I'm encouraging filmmakers to just oversaturate the industry so it kills it, and in the process creates a new cinema. So, there's quite a big mission behind it.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
And it's easier to make films like this as well. I mean, I make feature films for like £500, which are it's like less than £1,000, less than $1,000.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I'm stretching it as well. I mean, that's only because I'm buying the cast food and I'm paying for their travel and things. I could be a right cheap bastard if I really wanted to. I could make one for like £10 for like $20.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It's important to take care of the people that are part of the production, taking care of you.
Yeah, it's important that they eat. They like to eat.
Absolutely. So to dive into the first question of the show, just as I mentioned, 3 questions. What is your inspiration for both films? Because I think there's a crossover in both films in terms of Virgin Rebel and Anarchy in the UK. What's been your artistic inspiration for creating those works?
I mean, Virgin Rebel is Sid Vicious talking.
Is that right?
Yeah, punk rocker Sid Vicious. And he's just having a really intimate interview in his bedroom with a journalist. And this is right when he became, a superstar in the UK, punk superstar. And he's talking the truth. I mean, he's quite an angry young man, isn't he? And that's how a lot of teenagers feel at that age, that nobody listens to him, nobody gives a shit, they're just misunderstood. But at the same time, young people have got a lot of knowledge that older people forget. There's a lot of ethics that when you become a mature adult, you forget how it was. You become a planner, and teenagers don't really plan a lot of the time. So it's very pure what he's saying. So what? He's swearing, and he's being a bit coarse and all that shit. But he's speaking the truth, and he's speaking his truth. And I mean, the video as well. One day I was in my apartment, and across the street, these kids like 13, 14 are just hanging out, and they kind of remind me of monkeys. You know what I mean? They're like bouncing around. They got so much energy. They're bouncing around. They're flirting. I just find it really beautiful. So I just filmed it right there on my camcorder, right from the window. I can't remember how long it is. What is that? 5-7 minutes?
Yeah, something about that. Closer to 8, maybe 7-8 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, one continuous shot of these, and it's great. And then they disappear, and who knows where they go to next. I love that. It's like, whatever happened to him? And that was a couple of years ago as well. So they might have changed. Who knows?
Yeah, it's very cool. So you really groove with the themes of, what kids know and what adults forget. And you know, I think that's definitely a poignant theme, and there is definitely overlap between that and anarchy in the UK. You know, this idea of a formal marketplace of filmmaking in a traditional context, and then this DIY grassroots effort that has more of a purity, non-traditional, and maybe exploitive, just in the sense of, hey, we need to sustain the $1 million that we just put into this film. Right?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, obviously, people don't want to lose money and all that type of thing, but you know, there has to be like a pure idea at the bottom of it, of a film, because all I see these days are prequels and trequels, and you know what I mean. Originality has kind of gone down the toilet a little bit. You know, people don't want to experiment as much. I mean, that's why I'm doing this film festival, Straight Jacket Guerrilla Film Festival, is to get all these international experimental and guerrilla filmmakers who are very talented, but they've got a style that's different from the mainstream, you know. So bring them all together and just kind of like take over the industry. And they're all, as I said, they're all very pure artists and working for no budget, you know, absolutely no budget whatsoever. Most of the people in the films aren't even actors. They're just like street superstars that they've found and that improvise, no scripts, you know. We don't even use scripts. We're not scared to make a feature film without a script. I think that's really brave.
Definitely. It's definitely a worthwhile cause to take up, you know, original voices and original works of art are, you know, important to cultural progression. So no doubt about that.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun as well. I mean, you know, we're having this deep conversation, but there's so many different styles of guerrilla film. It's not all political, you know. A lot of it's just like the random things that happens in everyday life, the crazy little things that happen, the minuscule things that happen throughout that. You know, it can be all sorts of different messages. You know, it's not just, yeah, they're made for no money, but we can make any subject, any topic, and we can make them a lot faster than feature films as well. You know, we can churn them out.
Yeah.
Enormous speed, and then show them to the whole world online on YouTube. I don't know what's happening with Vimeo. Is Vimeo shutting down?
Not that I know. Why?
I saw a news feed saying that it was closing down.
No kidding.
Yeah, on BBC.
Really?
I don't know what. Hopefully they saved it. I mean, I'm on Vimeo, so I'd hate to see all that, you know, deleted. But yeah, you never know.
Interesting. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, please do. I need to look up on it as well. But that's the last I saw him. I saw it on NME, NME.com.
Okay. Well, so right to the second question is, you know, when you look back on Anarchy in the UK now that you've made it, and when you look back on Virgin Rebel, what do you see as the message of those two films?
Oh, I mean, Anarchy is full of Anarchy in the UK is full of messages, because it's all these different filmmakers, isn't it? You know, they've all got their own style, and I don't know, they're all got different personalities as well. I mean, my personality is more gung-ho, you know. I'm more like I'm like Tiger Blood, you know. I'm Charlie Sheen in that way, you know. I'm very outspoken for an English person, because I lived in America, so I'm an English person with an American you know, I'm happy to talk, and I'm happy to talk loud, and I miss that about America a lot. I quite get into a lot of trouble, be it in England at the moment, and my views. But in America, you guys can take it, can't you? You guys can take a punch. An English person can't take a punch.
Well, you guys have a few outstanding, outspoken characters. I mean, I lived in England for a year, and I found the comedy there way more progressive and bold than it is in America. So, you know, you guys do your share. You know, like you just. What's that?
The comedy is, you're right about that. It's strange, isn't it? Comedy and music in the UK have got a lot of balls, but cinema in the UK has got no balls whatsoever.
Yeah.
You know, it's still got this fucking Hugh Grant connotation, and a lot of cinemas won't show indie films. You know, it's mostly American films that you see over here, not British film, which is, it's a real shame. They're scared to take that, and I'd like to incorporate, you know, comedy and the music attitude and put that into the cinema attitude in the UK and give it some balls, give it some bollocks, as they say over here.
Right. Yeah, totally. Well, I can see that that could be a good combo. You mentioned, in Anarchy in the UK that, what is it? Is it the British Film Commission? I'm not exactly sure what the title is, that they're
Yeah,
shutting down.
yeah, BFI. Yeah,
BFI. So British Film, what, Institute?
yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah, based in London.
Uh-huh. And so they fund a lot of independent work.
Yeah, I know it's not really an independent film, is it? That's not true independent. When you
Right.
think of independent, you think of people like Sundance, and they're actually putting, or the like the French New Wave, like Godard, and filmmakers like that. I mean, you got Harmony Korine that's doing it, and he's gone a bit mainstream now, but he's a brave filmmaker. Or Lars von Trier, and he's constantly in trouble as well. England doesn't. I guess I'm the English version of that. I'm the English Lars von Trier. I can't get my films shown in cinemas. A couple of times I've seen the content and they've taken it down because it's too controversial, which is a shame. People want to see controversy. We don't want to just see fluff all the time.
So going back to, that second question, diving in a little deeper, yes, you've got a bunch of different filmmakers saying with their own personalities, but I think you have a whole film, you have a whole body of work there in the Anarchy in the UK, and there's a message there. So I think, what do you think is the message of that movie as well as Virgin Rebel, and how do the two relate?
Oh, they're very close, actually. Yeah, they're very close. It's just to be yourself, and if you want to make a feature film, do it. Don't be scared of the industry. Yeah, so what? Big deal. I mean, if I want to get an advertisement in a magazine, I just go to a bank and get a loan. Don't worry about the money aspect. I mean, it is a fight, it is but I enjoy that. It's a brawl, and that's kind of what these filmmakers in Anarchy in the UK are doing. They're fighting the system, they're fighting the mainstream, and that's really sexy. I think that's how it should be, and that's how you're going to get growth. It should be a fight, that's what. So it's the young versus the old. The people that are in charge at the BFI are old. Sure, they know better on certain subjects, but they're being very close-minded on accepting new filmmakers. The only way they accept a new filmmaker a lot of the time is when the person dies. They're showing all these films from the 60s that were controversial, but they wouldn't show them at the time in the 60s. So the same thing's happening now. And the people in the documentary say, we're not going to take that. We don't want to be celebrated when we're dead. I want to be celebrated now. Yeah, go ahead.
Totally. And, I think, so there's two sides of that story. The one side of that story that's really most interesting for me is that you said, hey, a struggle is growth, right? So there's some sort of natural element to that. And I think that's really, you hit it on the head. That's the segue or the overlap between those two films, is that idea of a struggle for progression and personal progression, which it ultimately amounts to, in that struggle between the individual and society as it is, and how the individual can find their authentic place in society. I mean, that's a struggle, right? But at the same time, you don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. There's certain things that are not so great about society, but, there are a lot of great things as well about society. And, man's done a reasonably okay job. Some things better than others. The atomic bomb kind of sucks, but, it's good. People are able to have homes over their heads. Some living conditions are better than others, and some countries are still very much struggling. And oftentimes in those struggling economic countries, there's a more spiritual growth, interestingly enough, than in countries that have more financial freedom or whatever, better well off. And the thing. So that's kind of like one thing that, on the message layered level, I'd be curious to get your feedback on. And on the other tip, it's like, look, the thing with what these cinemas are doing, they wouldn't be able to be in business if they don't get asses in seats, right? There's this expression in the theater world, maybe it's in the film world as well. It's all about getting asses in seats. So, if a filmmaker doesn't have an audience, well, shit. Sorry, buddy. I mean, you could be taking a picture of a turd for an hour and a half, but if you're going to fill that theater with, 100,000 people for the next, month, then yeah, they'll show it.
Yeah, But don't you think that the cinemas should also advertise? A lot of these cinemas are too lazy to even advertise these new filmmakers.
Well, it costs money, right? It costs money.
I mean, does it these days? I mean, if they've got, I don't know, 200,000 likes on Facebook, all it takes is one button. I mean, come on.
Potentially. I don't know. I don't know.
That's all they're doing, though. And they won't do that. You know, they want a filmmaker to come in and hire the space privately. And then on top of that, they won't even advertise the film that's showing. And this filmmaker is paying to show it at the cinema. I mean, that's like a slap in the face, I think. All they have to do is advertise. All you got to do is make a film sexy and people will go and see it. That's all. It's so simple. But they're making it such a big thing because we're young filmmakers. We don't have a massive Steven Spielberg audience. And, you know, the films are fun. You know, the films are really fun that these people are making and they don't want to show them. It's just a really shame. You know, it's a big shame.
I'm sure there's room for improvement on their side, no doubt about it. I'm sure, you know, there are things that they could do better. At the same time, I think it's important to be sympathetic of the economics of the business. And the fact is, you know, the film theatrical business in America is not necessarily that big. It's about a 13 to $14 billion industry. There are companies that make that you know, they make that in a year and make double that in a year, you know.
Oh yeah, so, yeah. I mean, I don't really care if I'm more concerned with showing my work online. I think that's the future.
Yeah.
I know cinemas are going to disappear in the future, except for a select few. So, you know, main cinemas are going to be dead in about 20 years, I reckon, except for a few. And that's a shame, but there's online, and online you got a worldwide audience.
There's a great renaissance. There's a lot of opportunity out there. That's what definitely we are advocating and fighting for and working for. You know, and to get back to that message before we go to the third question, to get back to that, really the heart of the message, which, you know, part of the main focus of the show is getting into that human element that is ubiquitous for all, right? The human condition, you know. So when you're talking about struggling for growth, right? Can you elaborate on that anymore? In terms of your artistic process as well.
I guess to just face your fears. Like for my first film, you know, I don't know. I guess nudity is a fear that everybody has. Nobody wants to be naked in public, right? So for my first film, I became a nude life model.
Nude live model, you said?
A nude life model. So you take all your clothes off. Yeah, so you take all your clothes off and people draw you. You know?
Oh, right. Oh, cool.
A nude life model. So that's what I became. I became the character. So it's like method directing. And I directed that film as well.
That's very impressive. Good for you, man.
Anything. I don't know if you're scared to go to the doctor, or you're scared to. In that film, I was scared to go to the dentist, so I went to the dentist and I filmed it. You know, so it's all these little fears.
That's beautiful, man.
Yeah. So it's like a very pure film concept in a way, and that's part of like the Pink 8 manifesto, where if someone wants to make a Pink 8 movie, they become the director and they also become the actor. And they have to face all these fears, whatever they are. Yeah. So I don't know, but to face your fears and to not be scared to show your movies. I mean, at the moment, I'm having these talks with all these filmmakers who have submitted these films to my festival, and they're scared about not having their films be private. I'm like, so what does it matter? You know, what does it matter if people see your work? Why keep the film private? You worked all this time to make this film. Why are you hiding your film?
Well, but that's because they're trying to submit it to other festivals, and those other festivals have these caveats that it can't be online, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, just do it secretly. Come on, just do it secretly. I mean, I understand if you got distribution, but you still hold the right to your film.
Yeah.
Let the distributors boss you around.
But that's a separate whatever. But I think what you're talking about, man, is the purity of filmmaking, the purity of the artistic process, and that has to be.
It's a beautiful thing. I don't ever want to lose that.
Yeah, that centers around a balls deep self-exploration and tackling those fears. And the more vulnerable you are, you know, it's really comes down to vulnerability. The more vulnerable you are, the more convincing is, the more organic, the more original is whatever it is you're showcasing.
Oh, so, yeah. It's experimenting. You know, that's why I like to combine I like to combine experimental cinema, comedy, satire, drama, put it all together. I mean, for my last film, Loon, I just lived with this family for a week and just shot them. And, this really interesting character called Charlie, who wanted to be a drummer, and he was a thief, and he was on prescription medication, and he had a really big crush on his sexy cousin, who was a maniac. She was a very violent person, and she could get him to do anything because he had this crush on her because she was beautiful. She had like a nice, voluptuous body, and you'd do anything. I mean, she was older than him.
Did you present it as a documentary, or did you?
It's a drama. That's what I mean. It's a feature film shot as a documentary with real people. So it's like a mutation of cinema. It's like YouTube. It's the YouTube generation come to cinema.
Well, we're sort of promote that kind of style of filmmaking here, which is you find a documentary, a real drama that's happening in life, you shoot it, and then you present it as a narrative.
Oh yeah, completely. But it's not a documentary. It's drama, real drama. And and I don't know what I've made people play with a Ouija board. We went to this old school that was full of ghosts. So we went there and we were playing Ouija boards, and all this weird stuff happened. Someone's chair got pulled up under him, all that type of thing. Another guy fainted. This guy with like this, he looked like Bigfoot. He fainted. All sorts of experimentations. If someone wants to do some drugs while they're, if someone likes to smoke weed, go ahead, smoke some weed. All the good actors from the 50s were all drunk, weren't they, when they were doing these classic movies? I love all that. Just be yourself when you're making a film with me. That's all I ask for.
Very cool. So let me ask you the last question. What have you learned since making at least the two films that we're talking about? And if you have one that's more recent, top of mind, but particularly Virgin Rebel, the new, and Anarchy in the UK, the new underground cinema.
In total, like out of all this, I've made 7 feature films. I made 2 feature films under an alter ego called Jet Hollywood, who's like a Ziggy Stardust. David Bowie?
Sure.
It's Ziggy Stardust character, only as a filmmaker. So, because why should musicians have all the fun? If a filmmaker wants to have an alter ego or be a filmmaker from Mars, do it. So I made.
Yeah, I checked out your website. I read that. Yeah.
So I made 2 films like this, and the rest I made them as myself. And I just learned to be strong. I mean, I'm bulletproof now because I've spoken to so many different peoples. I could speak to someone as if they're my brother, as if I've just met them right off the street like that. Like the connection is just instant. I feel it with you right now. It's just like an instant connection being a filmmaker. You can talk to anybody. It's you become anybody. You become a chameleon. It's almost more than a chameleon. I don't know. I've evolved. I don't know how to say it. I'm not saying I'm better than anybody else, but I encourage people, if you do want to be in touch with the whole of humanity, become a filmmaker, because I don't judge anyone. I don't judge anyone's personality. Sometimes, if the stranger the person is, the more I feel comfortable with them in a way. I don't know. It's
sure compassion.
I mean, for my last film, I'm working on it right now. I'm putting it together. It's called Teddy Bears Live Forever, and it's about it girls. So like Paris Hilton, Kim Kardashian, Marilyn Monroe, Edie Sedgwick. It's a combination of all these it girls, and I think a lot of them lead very tragic lives. Actually, they're celebrated and then they're spit out. So it's I learned a lot about women. I'm straight, but I've learned how delicate women are inside, and my family are mostly boys, so I think every man should kind of go through that. We got the whole Me Too movement.
I think that delicacy goes for all the sexes and any in between.
Just to be open-minded to all these different, as I said, all these it girls. A lot of them are like broken inside, like broken angels.
Sure.
Kind of. We watch this girl as she kind of, I don't know, she goes crazier and crazier. I mean, she's got multiple personality disorder as well, and she wants one of her personalities to lose her virginity, even though she isn't a virgin. Does that make sense?
It does, actually.
Yeah, it's incredible. She's got all these 7 personalities, but one of her personalities wants to lose her virginity. So it's just a story about her being housebound. And the person that filmed it, you know, she was great to work with. She was very brave. I mean, you'll see the film. I mean, she basically tears herself apart. You know, she's pulling her hair out. She's under enormous psychosis. Oh, she's very brave.
Sad.
Yeah, but she's very brave to do this in front of the camera. You know, I admire that.
Fabrizio, you know what you said about your ability to connect with people now that you've had a lot of experience to go out and interact and shoot people and direct. And I think, you know, something that's you know, that compassion and that ability to see people and not judge them is a way that, you know, you're able to build trust instantly, and that helps you go out and direct people that are in real life that you don't know very well, or you may have just met, and for them to want to be a part of your work. So I can understand how that plays in really importantly just to your process as well as your own humanity. And that growth and that struggle as an artist that you've come to now, where you say you're bulletproof, then you've defined your bulletproof in that sense that you're able to have the skills to communicate with people and, you know, bond with people quite quickly. One of the things that it reminds me of is I had a conversation with a gentleman from Norway, and he was living here. He's 60 years old, around 60. Actually, he's 60. And he was living here in New York City for about 7 years, and he said the best years of his life. And I asked him why, and he said, you know, on those days you're walking down the street and you meet the eyes of a stranger and they smile at you, that can change your entire day.
Oh, yeah.
And that, what's that?
Like a high.
Sure, yeah. And that connectivity, you know, I think that informs now your own personhood, your own soul, and then connectivity that informs your artwork is something that you can bring to other people. And, you know, I think that's a really valuable gift.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I've got opinions, you know, everyone's got opinions, and, you know, if I offend certain people, it's not done from a malicious. I'm just like, for example, I was talking today about someone about short films compared to feature films. And I'm encouraging short filmmakers to make feature films. I'm not saying, you know, I'm not demeaning your work as a short filmmaker. I'm encouraging, I'm saying, yeah, you're great. Why don't you make a feature film? Why don't you make your canvas bigger? Because you can do it. And why don't you, like, become part of, like, a bigger, I mean, obviously, we all know how many feature films can you name compared to short films? You know, nobody can do it. Short films get thrown away, and I don't want to see that. I want to see people be remembered and for them to see their work. So, you know, why not graduate and make a feature film? That's, you know, I was talking to this person today, and she thought I was being malicious, and I'm not being malicious. I'm saying, you know, you can do it, and I believe in you, and make a feature film, you know, as an experience, as all these things that I've just told you, you know, as growth. You grow more making a feature film as opposed to a short film, I think.
Well, on that note, you know, we'll wrap up. I mean, I got to tell you, you're talking to a guy who's building a platform dedicated to making those short films live and spread and get the recognition that they deserve. I've seen a tremendous amount of short films that are incredibly high quality. And, you know, now with, you know, my own personal opinion about it is that, you know, with the convergence of technology and the internet and that cinematic experience, it seems to be really pretty right. Not that features are going anywhere, but, and not that they may be an entirely new kind of experience with a different canvas and aesthetic, or maybe the same aesthetic, but just a different kind of production process. You know, there is certainly a place for the poem, as is there a place for the novel. And, you know, they can be of equal value.
Mm-hmm.
So, Fabrizio, dude, really enjoy what you're doing, man. I think keep at it. It's a wonderful, authentic, honest process. I really look forward to checking out more of your work. Keep sharing it with us. We'll keep promoting it. And thank you for your contribution. Thanks for being on the show today.
Thanks to you guys. Yeah, keep it up.
We will. All right. Later, bro. Great to meet you.
And bye.
Bye. Film and filmmaker discovery in your hands. Here, filmmakers and fans, the creative class, recognizes each other fairly and transparently through a community-curated film festival each quarter. It's coming soon. Thank you.